Have you noticed that the more pleasure you chase, the less you feel like it? That suddenly, what used to spark desire now seems to do nothing. That's the point where pleasure stops feeding the body and starts draining it. Most men think desire is fading because of age, stress, or routine, but in truth, what's killing desire is excess. Pleasure is a delicate system, controlled by a network of hormones and neurotransmitters working in sync. At the center is dopamine, the hormone of motivation, curiosity, and desire. It's what makes a man want, pursue, and conquer. But when dopamine is released in excess, as happens with frequent masturbation, porn consumption, and constant pursuit of stimulation, the brain begins to shut down its receptors. It adapts to the overload. And when that happens, pleasure loses power. A man believes he needs more stimulus, more intensity, more frequency. But what he really needs is a pause. Because a brain saturated with dopamine stops responding. The urge to masturbate may remain, but true desire, the kind that involves connection, arousal, and energy, disappears. It's as if the body still works, but the mind is switched off. With each ejaculation, the body runs an intense chemical cycle. Dopamine rises, adrenaline surges, and soon after prolactin kicks in to force rest. When this cycle repeats too often, the brain lives between spikes and crashes with no time to stabilize. The result? Apathy, fatigue, lack of interest, and a sense of emptiness after pleasure. This is the kind of pleasure that kills desire. Quick, automatic, and unconscious. The brain loses sensitivity, the body loses vitality, and the man starts to think the problem is me. But it isn't. It's just the body trying to protect itself from excess. Desire doesn't die, it falls asleep. And awakening begins when a man understands what's happening inside his own brain. I'm Emily Collins, a urologist, and today I am going to explain why excess stimulation is destroying your desire, and what your body is trying to tell you about it. But before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because here I talk about men's sexual health with scientific grounding, no taboos, and plain language. And tell me in the comments, do you feel your desire isn't what it used to be? Desire doesn't start in the penis. It starts in the brain. That's where everything begins, in the same place where thoughts, emotions, and motivation are created. Dopamine is the hormone that lights that flame. It's the engine of libido, the fuel of curiosity and conquest. When dopamine is balanced, a man feels drive, interest, impulse, and pleasure. But when it's depleted, the body may react, yet the mind doesn't follow. Dopamine is the messenger of reward. Every time you want something, sex, food, victory, it's released, pushing the brain to pursue that pleasure. In sex, it works with other neurotransmitters like oxytocin and serotonin to create deep pleasure and satisfaction. The problem is that the brain wasn't made to receive dopamine all the time. It needs pauses, variation, and time to rebalance. When stimulation is excessive, frequent masturbation, pornography, sex without breaks, the brain gets used to high dopamine. In response, it reduces available receptors. It's like pleasure now needs more energy to have the same effect. A man feels he needs more stimulus, more intensity, more frequency, but really, he's just trying to compensate for an exhausted system. That's why many men say their desire is disappearing. The body is healthy, testosterone, the male hormone, may even be normal, but the brain has lost sensitivity to dopamine. It doesn't feel like seeking pleasure because the reward system is saturated. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure, it's about purpose. When it's balanced, a man feels energy, focus, and direction. When it's off, everything feels lukewarm, repetitive, dull. Life loses flavor. And sexual desire is the first to fall. Pleasure should be a natural dopamine surge. But when stimulation is constant, the brain no longer responds with the same spark. It's the body saying, I need to breathe. That's exactly where pleasure starts turning into dependence. The man no longer seeks pleasure because he wants to, he seeks it because he needs to feel something. Now let me show you the effect of excess, when pleasure is so constant the brain stops reacting, and desire begins to fade. Pleasure is a biological reward system. It was designed to motivate you, not trap you. But when stimulation becomes constant, what was pleasure becomes saturation. The brain stops reacting intensely, and desire starts to vanish. It's like the switch that once lit the urge has been flipped so many times it barely works. Excess masturbation and visual stimuli, especially pornography, create a state of hyperdopamine release. The brain is flooded with dopamine at an unnatural frequency. As defense, it shuts down receptors that feel pleasure. It's as if it says, "Too much dopamine, I need protection." The result is desensitization, pleasure loses impact, and desire disappears. This process is insidious because it happens slowly. At first, pleasure is intense, then you notice you need more stimulus to feel the same. New videos, new fantasies, more frequency. Until one day you realize pleasure has become a joyless repetition. You may ejaculate, but feel empty. The body reacts, the penis works, but the mind doesn't join in. A saturated brain stops linking pleasure to achievement or connection. It responds only to quick, artificial stimulus. That's when the desire for real sex, touch, emotional bond starts to vanish. Easy pleasure turns into a prison. Dopamine, which once drove you to act, now keeps you stuck in a loop of seeking and dissatisfaction. And when it crashes, which it always does after ejaculation, the body enters apathy. It's the dopamine crash, no energy, no focus, no drive. The most dangerous part is that this state spreads beyond sex. It invades every area of life. A man loses motivation at work, in training, in relationships. Artificial pleasure steals the shine of real things. Excess kills desire because it turns pleasure into obligation. The brain stops wanting what it feels too much of. But the effect isn't only chemical, it's hormonal, too. The body reacts to this dopamine fatigue with a drop in testosterone, the hormone that sustains potency, erection, and desire. Now I'll explain the hormonal collapse that happens when excess pleasure starts draining your testosterone. Testosterone is the fuel of male vitality. It sustains desire, erection, confidence, and energy. When balanced, a man feels light in his body, clear in his thoughts, and naturally turned on. But when it drops, everything changes. Desire fades, erections weaken, mood swings, and the body feels slower. The problem is many men are draining testosterone without realizing it, through excess pleasure. With each ejaculation, the body releases a powerful hormonal cascade. Dopamine and adrenaline rise, the heart speeds up, and soon prolactin, the hormone that closes the pleasure cycle, takes over. Prolactin is essential, but in excess it temporarily suppresses testosterone production. When a man ejaculates often without recovery time, prolactin stays high all the time. The result? Lower testosterone and lost desire. This process is physiological, not psychological. The body simply switches to economy mode. It decides it doesn't need to produce as much sex hormone if pleasure is being spent constantly and without purpose. It's a natural defense. But for the modern man, used to daily stimulation, that defense becomes self-sabotage. Over time, the hormonal axis, the communication between brain, testes, and glands, slows down. The body produces less testosterone and more cortisol, the stress hormone. That swap changes everything: more fatigue, irritability, lower sex drive, and flimsier erections. Pleasure still happens, but the impulse disappears. What's more, this hormonal drop doesn't show up overnight. It erodes the body slowly. First desire declines, then vigor. Until a man gets used to living in lukewarm mode, thinking it's just age. It isn't. It's chemical imbalance caused by overstimulation. When testosterone drops, the body loses vitality, and the brain loses direction. Inner pleasure fades, and the penis mirrors that disconnect. Physical potency reflects hormonal potency. The good news: the body has an amazing ability to recover. When you reduce excess, sleep better, eat right, and respect recovery time, testosterone rises naturally again. But before desire returns, the body sends signs, warnings that the system is at its limit and pleasure is draining more than it gives. Now I'll show you those signs, the indicators that your desire is in collapse and your body is asking for a break. The body always speaks before it fails. It doesn't shut down suddenly, it dims gradually. When desire begins to vanish, these signs appear one by one, subtle at first, until a man notices pleasure isn't the same. The penis still reacts, but without strength, the urge comes but fades fast, climax happens but leaves fatigue instead of satisfaction. These are warnings of dopaminergic and hormonal overload. The first sign is sexual apathy. Less wanting, less curiosity, less interest. Touch doesn't spark, thoughts don't trigger, and the brain feels disconnected from the body. This is the classic symptom of depleted dopamine, pleasure lost intensity because the brain lacks energy to respond. The second sign is orgasm without pleasure. The body hits climax, but the mind doesn't follow. The feeling is brief, empty, and quickly turns into fatigue. It's as if pleasure stopped being restorative and became just a discharge. This happens when the brain links pleasure to relief, not reward. The third sign is constant fatigue, even after sleeping well. Low testosterone and excess prolactin put the body in economy mode. Energy shrinks, focus disappears, drive fades. You start the day as tired as you ended the last. The fourth sign is weaker, less spontaneous erections. Dopamine and testosterone govern arousal. When they drop, penile response gets slower, less firm, and harder to maintain. The body tries to react, but the mind doesn't send the command. The fifth sign, the most dangerous, is losing interest in real contact. A man gets used to quick, solitary, predictable pleasure. He trades connection for convenience. When that happens, the brain starts forgetting natural pleasure, the kind that involves touch, scent, emotion, and presence. These signs are your body asking for a pause. Desire hasn't ended, the system is overloaded. The man who recognizes these alerts discovers desire never dies, it just needs time to wake up. And awakening begins with balance. Now I'll show you how to restore desire and reignite natural pleasure without relying on constant stimulation. Restoring desire isn't luck, it's rhythm. The male body is incredibly regenerative, it just needs time, rest, and direction. When pleasure is lived consciously, the brain responds again, dopamine rebalances, testosterone rises, and desire is reborn. That doesn't happen by sheer willpower, it happens through understanding. First step, give your brain and body a pause. Spend a few days without sexual stimulation, without porn, and if possible, without masturbation. That's the reset your dopamine system needs. It's the dopamine reset, a short but essential period for the brain to regain natural sensitivity to pleasure. After a week, most men notice desire returning with more intensity and less rush. Second step, rebuild dopamine the right way. Activities with purposes, training, focused work, learning something new, or emotional connection, are real stimuli that feed the brain without draining it. Pleasure stops being just physical and becomes emotional again. Third step, fuel the body with the elements that sustain desire. Zinc, magnesium, vitamin D, healthy fats, and deep sleep are the building blocks of testosterone. Without them, the body lacks energy to respond to pleasure. A well-nourished body is a body that wants. Fourth step, recover conscious pleasure. Slow down, feel the touch, breathe deeply, let body and mind reconnect. Dopamine responds to engagement, not hurry. The more presence, the more pleasure. Fifth step, understand desire doesn't need to be constant to be strong. It's a cycle. When you respect your body's timing, alternating stimulation and rest, desire becomes steadier, and erections stronger. The man who masters the rhythm of pleasure also masters the rhythm of his life. Desire doesn't die. It just gets tired when it's forced too much. A bit of balance is enough to make it pulse again, deeper, truer, more human. Now I'll show you the awakening of the man who learns to master his own pleasure, because those who control desire never lose potency. Desire doesn't disappear, it only sleeps when the body's overforced. The man who understands this discovers the secret of true potency: control. Pleasure without control is impulse, conscious pleasure is power. It's the harmony between body and mind that keeps desire alive. The male body was made for pleasure and for rhythm. Every pause, every breath, every moment of awareness returns sensitivity to the brain and strength to the body. The man who masters pleasure realizes desire doesn't depend on quantity, but on quality. The more balanced the rhythm, the more intense the urge becomes. Excess, on the other hand, turns pleasure into exhaustion. Dopamine plummets, testosterone falls, and the brain defends itself by dimming desire. The body tries to protect energy, but the man interprets it as failure. It's not failure, it's a warning. The body isn't giving up on feeling, it's asking to feel better. Conscious pleasure is a return to origin. It's when a man reconnects with his own body, without hurry, addiction, or escape. It's when touch regains meaning, climax becomes pleasure and not just relief, and desire is reborn as creative force, not mere discharge. I'm Emily Collins, a urologist, and I see this every day. Men who say, "I lost my desire," but in reality just drifted from their own rhythm. A few weeks of balance is enough to reignite the body. Dopamine recovers, testosterone rises, the mind clears, and the man feels want, presence, and power again. Mastering pleasure is mastering yourself. It's understanding your body doesn't need more stimulus, it needs more awareness. When pleasure returns to its natural timing, desire stops being fragile and becomes stable, mature, and constant. If you've made it this far, congratulations, it shows you want to understand your body and care for your desire intelligently. Now, subscribe to the channel, because here I talk about men's sexual health with scientific grounding, no taboos, and direct language. Leave your like if this video made you reflect, and comment below, "My desire is conscious." And for those who stayed until the end, the next video is already on the screen. There I explain how to reprogram your brain to feel true pleasure again, without losing energy and without shutting down desire. Click and keep going with me, because understanding your body is the first step to mastering your energy.